Okay, all right. So maybe we can start with sharing a bit of the weekend games.
Yeah.
How about Herman? Would you like to share first?
Yeah, so I washed my car. That was definitely a game. Okay. Um, I looked at the MQTT server stuff, and it definitely looks like we can use the MQTT implementation to expand it to spatial PubSub. So that's definitely looking positive.
Okay, so you had a look at the MQTT.
Yeah, so there was a MQTT library that a Node.js MQTT library that was posted on GitHub about 7 years ago, but it looks like it's set up in such it's a bunch of different repositories, but it's set up in such a manner that that it will be easy to just replace the what do you call it? The specific API functions are nice separated, so you can easily just go and replace that portions in there to do what you want to do. That's how it looks to me, at least.
Wow,
So I
nice.
think that's positive. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's a quite relevant game.
So basically, it gives us a nice skeleton or a nice framework to put the rest of the stuff on. So I think that's very, very nice.
Okay, nice. All right. So how about you, Victory? Any games learning this past weekend?
I think one of the biggest gains was I spoke with a very technical guy with regards to the project. And yeah, he asked me a lot of questions that made me also ask a lot of questions and sort of just go back and start looking again into the project in terms of what we're trying to solve, and if there's not already something existing that sort of solves what we're trying to solve, if that makes sense. But I think we're still our solution is still in charge, but in terms of sort of main question, and I think we've sort of asked this question in the past that, okay, why wouldn't Google just spend more money? What's wrong with Google just spending more money?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah, especially if they can afford it and, startups are willing to pay for it. And so far, I think our biggest solution is the scalability part. In terms of making it highly scalable. That's a game changer. But I'm not really sure if we've done any like comparative analysis to sort of prove that. There is results, don't get me wrong, but have we compared those results with and I think the vast that paper on Vorocast, it did a bit of comparison, but I don't think it was like detail where we can use actual numbers. So anyways, but that was a key gain. I was able to go to the beach as well to sort of clear my head. I was able to meet some friends, some very old friends. We drove down to Signal Hill, had some Nigerian food.
Okay, all right, nice. All right.
So it's a relaxing weekend a bit, yeah.
Okay, nice. So recovery is always good, gets you refreshed and also, prepare the mind, I guess, for the new challenges and things ahead. So, all right, so I'll share a bit of my, I think there are a couple of. One relevant, obviously, is last Friday's mastermind with Victory. Okay, I would say it was quite a peak experience, especially after sort of feedback on maybe Victory can start a startup now. just a bit ahead of schedule, right? And than what you originally intend to plan. I think that was an insight. Okay, which I also did not realize that that was a surprise actually to me as well. And the other thing, meaning that I was surprised that I mentioned that as a feedback. Okay, but it's just kind of a natural response given what you mentioned, about what you're looking forward in 3 years' time. Okay, so yeah, but obviously the choice is yours, to make, and it's for you to think about and decide. And The second game I think is Ben Hardy. I went through his material this weekend, and one of the things he asked us to think about is what are we like? What am I now like super committed to? Okay, and one thing that's correlated is that what should I uncommit from? Okay, so it's kind of like we have different tasks, but if we are really committed to a result, a goal, then that actually means we should also uncommit to some of the lesser goals. And lesser goals means that they could be interesting, could be fun, could be worthwhile. However, it's not directly related to the top goal at the moment, the most important thing. So for him, it was like preparing for ultra marathon. Okay, but it's fun. He enjoys that, but it's taking time and it's taking time away from his core goal of becoming his future self. So I spent some time about thinking that as well. Okay, over the weekend, and just decided that certain things maybe I should reprioritize or put it into a lesser role, or even eliminate, or just delegate out. So that was a game for me. All right. So I think Victory, maybe you can start then of the updates and things. Yeah, of the sync. Okay, so go ahead.
Now, try to share my screen just now. Share. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
All right. So I think first let me speak about the leader meeting. So I was able to speak with our leader on Thursday, and that was quite productive as well. We sort of decided as to the direction to take, which is first, at the moment, our leader, for example, is trying to play around with everything. And when I say everything now, the pub sub and the spatial pub sub, and basically the channel base and the topic, the area base is playing around with the code in general, just to get our mind around what do you call it, trying to get around mind around JavaScript itself, like how to use JavaScript. But the agreement at the moment now is to sort of simplify, and I think I have something, but it's not detailed yet. But the draft we had was to sort of simplify what needs to be done in terms of the project itself. For example, what are the key components? And for now, these are like tiny little bits. So the idea is once we can simplify this, and the idea is after she has sort of tried to play around with JavaScript enough, we can simplify all of this in terms of what needs to be done, and then how do we sort of split the work in terms of the backend side, where maybe I can focus on maybe the forwarding part and maybe she can focus on the pubs up part, where we say, okay, simulate for 10 nodes and subscribers. And the idea is to sort of draw out an area where we can show the nodes physically here, or like illustrate how the nodes look like on an XY plane, and then create a simulation for that and sort of deploy on Docker and basically build like step by step. But the idea is to first determine what needs to be done, and this is what we are currently sort of doing now to understand exactly and precisely what needs to be done based off the existing vast library, because I think the vast JS library already has quite a lot. We are thinking, you know what, let's not try to fix the pub sub, for example. Let's build our pub sub, right? Let's use our variables, let's use our data structures. And so we're basically building on top of the Vaughn layer.
I see. Directly, right? Directly.
Directly, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see. All right.
On the
Nice.
Vaughn layers. So and again, the idea is once she's, for example, intact with once both of us actually, because I'm also still playing around with, and which is, I think, takes me to the next vast JS. I'm playing around with the JavaScript library, From what I got on feedback I got on Friday was don't be afraid to break stuff. So I am breaking stuff, but
Nice, nice.
I have like a backup, so I can always like revert back anytime I break stuff. But
Right,
it's sort of
nice.
it's going smoothly to a certain extent. I think the next key part for me is to actually now like have my own like file to sort of now start populating it with my stuff and then doing like a test thing, like tests, send a request. Does the request go through? Do I receive the request? And maybe based off that to actually create the test driven development part almost immediately. So like maybe stage one is TCP, establish TCP connection, right? And then like write the code to establish and then maybe develop a test almost immediately to see, okay, is this test working? And if it works, then make it a test, already test case, and then maybe create a list somewhere on an Excel sheet to just keep track of all the tests. And the idea is once all that stuff is built in, then at the end of the whole project, I don't have to start the test driven part from scratch. It's sort of integrated into the main code. In terms of the timeline, so this is not done yet, but or this is not fully done yet actually, but I'm gonna try to work on this again today or some like this week just to put timelines to this in terms of when this should be done and all of this in time for our I'm gonna say November deadline, so that plus or minus December. um Also, publish chat app to GitHub. I have not done that yet, but I'll get I to that to I'll get to doing that today. I should be able to publish that sometime this morning. And but I wanted to confirm as well, should I put it on my personal GitHub or should I put that on the vast immunology GitHub repo? I'm not really sure if I even have access to publish there.
Okay, I can definitely give access to you. Okay,
Okay.
if you will want to do that. Is that your personal?
This is my personal, yeah.
Okay,
Let's see.
okay. But I think is if Herman had any feedback on this? I think it's also fine if Victor just put it on his personal for now.
Yes,
Before maybe we create like a project, right?
Okay.
At some
Okay.
point, maybe it might make sense to create just maybe a Vastverse account on GitHub.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
I mean, Turban, do you have any feedback on this?
yeah, I think I think we should just put it up for now. We can always move it to someone else.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
okay.
It's not that hard to move repo and copy fork
Yeah.
repo.
All right.
So just get whatever is convenient for you. Okay,
Yeah.
set things
All
up
right.
quicker.
Okay. I'll put that on my GitHub. I don't know. Okay. Professor Mann said he's been able to look at the MQTT implementation.
Yeah.
And from what I gather, it looks possible. So
Yeah,
that's great news.
definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Just a bit of an update as well. Like I said, I was speaking to like a developer over the weekend. The one I wanted to speak with on Sunday, I think something canceled, and he had to move that to sometime today around 3 o'clock, South Africa. I think it's like 12 o'clock South African time, but like 2:30 Indian time. I might need to confirm that. But I was able to speak to someone else who sort of was a friend. I only remembered. I saw him recently, and I was like, "Wow, why didn't I think of him?" And basically, he was trying to suggest that there might already be like scalable solutions, and the idea was it's sort of he understood the forwarding part in terms of the forwarding, okay, that's making things better, and but the scalable part, it was like no, he already does that and they already have like highly scalable solutions. But I sort of struggled to convince him about the cost part, like okay, yeah, it's scalable, but is it affordable? I mean, is it something that some guy can develop from his dorm room at the university? And and he wasn't sure. That's the thing, he wasn't sure. And I think that sort of raised the big question for me personally, that maybe I should start looking at comparative analysis now. And please might need some feedback on that as well. Maybe something I should think of, especially maybe from a proposal perspective, to sort of discuss like maybe results, or at least some preliminary results of some sort, as to how our solution, like, yes, they are scalable solutions, but how does our scalable solutions, for example, how does a spatial based pub sub beat a channel based pub sub, for example? By what magnitude? Is it by 1,000% magnitude, or 100% magnitude, or is it just a 2% magnitude? And if it's just a 2% magnitude, is it really worth the migration, for example? But this was a sort of question that sort of popped up after I spoke with him. But I did send him the links to the VAST page, as well as the concept paper that we submitted, and he said he will definitely have a look at it. But we are definitely in conversations in terms of perhaps onboarding him as well as a potential developer, maybe in the future. Also with Shenyun, I'm not really sure if you were able to.
Okay, all right. So the quick
feedback.
update is I haven't found someone, a suitable candidates, although I have sent out linking and
Okay.
also reach out some contacts. Also, I try to reach Indy, as you know, through other channels. But right now, I think this is still looking. Yeah.
All right.
I am, yeah, I think basically Joe keep posting and maybe asking. But I
Okay.
suspect it will be more helpful to get someone, who's involved with the open source community here in Taiwan to do this. Right.
Okay.
So, all right. I think I will
Okay.
ask Wen Hao maybe for his help. He
Oh,
should know
okay,
a few
yeah.
people in the
Probably
Code Club.
does. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So that's my update.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Shenyun. Just try to copy this out. But yeah, I think that's more or less it from my side. I don't know if there was any like comments or feedback or
Okay. So Herman, any feedback so far on the current update?
So if I understand, what you'll be focusing on now is to build the spatial PubSub API on top of the existing Vaughan system.
Vaughn,
Is that
yes.
what
Yes.
guys are Okay, and
I'll definitely do some copy and pasting, don't get me wrong, from the current spatial
Yeah.
PubSub implementation, but it wouldn't be like I'm modifying that. It would be like I'm creating my like something new, but off the existing one.
And how is have you and Alida chatted about what are the different features that are going to be implemented and who's going to be doing
So that's the meeting we had on Friday. We were sort of vague in terms of the details. And so one of the things we discussed was the next time we'd speak, based off what we've discovered, for example, based off what I've discovered, what the VAS can do itself and what needs to be done, then we can sort of split it, or also what she has discovered from a coding perspective, because at the moment, I think our primary focus is on the basic node-to-node PubSub, and which I think she's currently focusing on as well. So based off that, then we can sort of come back together, and I think we're gonna have a session on Wednesday. She's, I'm not sure if she's scheduled it yet, but we did agree that we're gonna meet again on Wednesday, and then we can now start allocating in terms of the detail. That okay, you focus on the TCP, for example, or the socket part, and now focus on the data part. But the idea is these are the two key components: the matcher to matcher distribution part, and then the node to node publish subscribe. And the idea is these two sort of have details in terms, and we still sort of need to put that down on paper. And once this is sort of working and running, then we can convert the data structure to an API sort of format, and then maybe deploy to Docker. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, Herman, any questions, feedback there?
Okay, so and I'm guessing one of you will be working on the one aspect and the other one would be working on the other aspect. When you
Yeah.
say convert to API, do you, in other words, is that in other words the publish API and the subscribe API?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, where and we'll probably need to do a bit of reading on that because I know there is a way to like make your code API structured, if that makes sense, in terms of creating data points and endpoints and stuff like that, such that when a developer connects to it, there's a standard procedure they can use without having to go into the the code base itself or the library. So basically
that's
converting
just
it like
okay.
sorry.
So I would actually suggest what you do is you look at the MQTT standard for and the API that they've defined in MQTT for publish and subscribe. And you basically, because they have basically the message format and they have a, they have a channel format there, and then that you use that, basically that API format, and just and for the spatial pub sub, just go and replace the channel with a location and a radio
Area, perhaps.
the area, because then basically what you have is you have something which is very, very similar to the MQTT API, which means that if we want to entice people to basically either move over from the MQTT or basically expand their MQTT usage, then the syntax for using the API is already very similar, and something which has already been, I mean, the MQTT standard has gone through lots of discussion, so I think we can assume that it has, there's good reasons why they chose it like that. So I think it'll just make expanding to the, integrating this with the MQTT much easier if you basically just start with the MQTT API and just make, change the publish and subscribe and unsubscribe to better fit spatial publish and subscribe.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense actually.
Of writing this and then converting it to an API and then finding out, oh, wait a minute, but now to change this to work with MQTT is actually going to be slightly more fun. So this is less about how do you actually expose the API in a library, and it's more about what should the actual parameters be of the various API calls.
Okay.
Exactly. I concur with Herman's feedback. I mean, it's very good feedback. Yep. That's basically you want to design people's understanding. I heard a term a while back. It's called understanding design as designing understanding. Right? Think about what it means. Okay. So try to see design as building up people's understanding about what you're doing. Okay. So understanding design as designing understanding. So actually by following and modeling after MQTT's formats, existing ones actually is very nice to help people to better understand what it is. Okay, so this is kind of designing people's understanding to what spatial PubSub is. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have a couple of feedbacks just quickly. One is that I think it was in our experience that usually when we are, I think now into the development stage, okay, of doing coding implementation, it will be very helpful to be able to have visual representations, okay, or visual feedback of how, how it actually works, okay? So ideally, this can be done by a, some kind of graph, some kind of actual, for example, positions, dots on the 2D, a 2D plane that can move, that can show its AOI, that can show the neighbors, all that. Okay, so this is just a feedback that it might help, because once you have that in place, you will be able to debug and to test and to have a visual cue much easier. Okay, so that will helps in terms of verifying whether the implementation is working correctly or not.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is something I think I suggest to maybe can do it first before
Okay.
it's also kind of like doing a test, you know, except that in this case, you're providing visual feedback. So
Okay.
you can verify if the underlying implementation or protocol are working correctly.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Miguel did that. I recalled he had something similar. Okay, but I'm not sure if Herman remembers that.
He had the visualizer, that is true. The final year project student has actually been looking at the visualizer.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
we looked at it on Thursday or Friday, maybe last week Tuesday, I can't remember.
Okay.
I think one issue was that I think if you look at Miguel's code, then he had some external host service or something that he used as well. So it doesn't run out of the box at the moment. If you go to his the development branch of Vast and you try to run it, it doesn't run because it's trying to connect to some external host or something, and that doesn't work. So I have told the student to see if we can get the visualizer up and running. There's apparently one piece of code that is a breach between the matcher and the visualizer code that needs to be running for it to work.
Okay, okay, that's good. Yeah. So if you can get the visualizer work, I think that would help a great deal, or maybe by
Yes.
reusing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first feedback. And the second is because I think you talk about Alida maybe doing the spatial pops up interface, right? And implementation. And you are working on the forwarding. Is that right?
Yes, something like
Okay,
that. Yeah.
so I think that can be you guys can do that fairly independently. So I think Alida, if she can just focus on doing a single match implementation for spatial pops up,
Okay.
okay. I mean that would be nice in terms of we then can have already a working system that provides
Okay.
spatial pops up, and that can be validated. You know, that can validating test cases that's running on top, right? Because
Yeah.
we can then test if the test cases will actually pass through with the spatial pops up functions. And then it's the matter of how we actually make that multi-matcher, right? So maybe my feedback is that I can focus on that aspect first.
Okay.
Okay,
Go
so
match up.
yeah, so this is something maybe to discuss with her. All right, so Victor, maybe you can lay out the task for the day now.
Okay. I just realized now. I think Miguel asked me to get back to him around sometime this week. Migros follow up. Okay. With when how I think that's fine. Sorry. So Herman talked about the visualizer, right? For that.
I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, and just make that blue. It's like
So just Herman, you is the student intended to extract the visualizer and make it work independently?
So the student is looked at Miguel's code, and I mean the student is supposed to basically take the spatial pub sub of which Miguel had developed and deploy it on a bunch of Raspberry Pis in order to basically develop a hardware test bed. And he looked at the visualizer and I mean, I thought it was already standalone, and then the student realized it is not as standalone as it should have been. So he hasn't looked at it, and his initial attempt to extract it was not successful. So it's something I'll have to look at to see, okay, but why,
Okay, I see.
what's the problem at the moment?
Okay, all right, thanks.
Alright, so we need to continue with JS. Look at MQTT. And then I think I need to start do some writing this week. Okay. Make this blue. All right. I don't know if I missed anything.
Okay, so Victory, with regard to the Fast.js continue, maybe can be more specific. What exactly you like
okay.
to do as the next step?
Let me see. Let's say establish comms or connection with one layer. So
Okay, I see. Basically testing out if you can use
Yeah,
the form
the one
functionality.
layer to basically like
Okay,
send
alright.
request and receive feedback.
Okay, nice.
Okay. That's fine. All right. Yeah. There. Any questions, comments, feedback?
Okay, no. I think it's good to just, I think right now it's without needed with a lot of small actions towards, trying out the code implementation. And yeah, basically getting feedback from the broken system and try to fix.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thanks everyone.
All right, so maybe talk tomorrow then.
Talk
All right.
tomorrow morning. Yes.
Okay, all right. So see you guys tomorrow.
Tomorrow
All
it
right,
is.
so thanks, Herman.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Victory.
Professor Herman. Professor Bye.
Okay, yeah, bye-bye. Take care.